Okay, so I want to give you a couple points on Chanukah. Probably the first one, if we spoke about, I don't remember, I spoke about this somewhere, and I don't remember if we spoke about it here. Did I ever mention Amnon Denkner, the Israeli editor Amnon Denkner? Okay, there was an Israeli editor. I first heard of this man from Rabbi Mendel Weinbach, the Rosh Hashiva Zichrono Livracha. I heard about him about 30 years ago. Amnon Denkner I think he came from a religious home, and he left it. The Gemara says, Shana upiresh, one who learned and left it, kasha mikulam. He's more difficult than everybody. He's got a biting resentment against the religion, probably because he knows what the religious people think of him. But he's learned enough to know kasha shana upiresh kasha mikulam. So Amnon Denkner, if I'm not mistaken, he was a shana upiresh. He became the editor of one of the major Israeli newspapers, which means that they're virulently left-wing anti-religious. Either Mariv or Yediot, one of the or Haaretz, I don't remember which one. Was it Haaretz? One of the virulently anti-religious newspapers. So Amnon Denkner, Rabbi Weinbach gave a shmooze. This is going back 30-something years. Amnon Denkner once wrote, in the name of fair journalism, you know how journalism, they always want to show that they're impartial, like the BBC. They want to show that they're impartial and they're fair and everything else. So Amnon Denkner wrote this article called Livadi. Livadi was a column he wrote, which means by myself. By myself, that's what it translates. That's the name of the column. And in this column, he details how he grew up in Israel. He says all of his friends have one of three things has happened. They've either been killed in Israel's wars, they've left Israel to go to either Los Angeles or live in Los Angeles or West Germany or Canada, or they become Baal Teshuvos. And then he goes on in this article, he says, when you go to Dizengoff in Tel Aviv, and you look at the people at Dizengoff in the clubs and in all these places, you look at these people, all you see is darkness on their face. You see darkness and frustration. And his friends, the Baalei Teshuvas, their eyes, they're lit up. You see light. Why he wrote a very positive article very positive column about the Baalei Teshuva. That's where I first heard of this man. Rabbi Weinbach had mentioned it. He even he at the end of the shmooze or in the base message. I don't know if you ever heard Rabbi Weinbach speak. He was a remarkable speaker, and he just ended it with saying, "Amnon Denkner, we're going to get you. Right, you're going to come back too." He hasn't so far. But that was the shmooze, okay? Now, why he did it, I have no idea. But a very positive towards Baalei Teshuva. He's talking about how the Baalei Teshuvas are fulfilled in there, and so on and so forth. Then about 15 years ago, he wrote another column. This column was on Chanukah. And he's addressing the secular Israeli public. And he says to the secular Israeli public, imagine the war was taking place today. The Greeks against the Chashmonaim. The Yevonim, the Greeks, they stand for entertainment, sports, outdoor cafes, immorality, general college campus behavior, right? That's what the Greeks stand for. The Chashmonaim stand for Torah, Tefillah, self-control, chesed, selflessness. So he says to the Israeli public, while you're lighting a menorah and eating a sufganiyah, and you're celebrating Chanukah, if that war was taking place today, whose side would you be on? Would you want the Chashmonaim to win, or would you want the Maccabees to win? Would you want the Greeks to win, or you want the Maccabees to win? That's what he says in the secular republic. You're celebrating the victory of the Maccabees, and you do nothing that's similar to what their life style was. You're living like a Greek. Now, who would you want to win that war if that war was taking place today? That was the article. That was a column he wrote. Why he did this, I have no idea. So I remember when I read this thing, my first thought was, if I was a secular Israeli, I'd be going nuts. I have a very serious inner conflict here. A very serious inner conflict. Whose side am I on? Then my next thought was not as pleasant. My next thought was, okay, and who would I want to win the war? If the Maccabees win, okay, so nowadays Maccabee is a beer, which is not very good. And Maccabee is the name of a sports team, which is even worse. Right, if you got to see them play to really appreciate how bad they are, and that's what they turned Maccabees to. Maccabees, that's everything Maccabees stood against. All right, nothing wrong with some beer once in a while, but sports, it's straight out of Greek. Sports is straight out of Greek. So all the things that we're into, sports, entertainment, all the things that we have a lot of in our life. How much is that? How much if that war was fought today? There it goes out the window. No more, all the Jewish agents in the NBA. That's it. Put on a yarmulke and find a job, guys. That's it. You're finished. So it was just a very poignant reminder Forget about the secular Israelis who will one day become religious. We'll get them. They're all going to come back. Yeah, that's inevitable. But what about myself? What about us? What about in our lifestyle? What are our values, and where are those values coming from? Where are those values? Which of those values are coming from the Chashmonoim? Which of those values are coming from the Yevonim? That's something a person always has to take stock of. Always has to do some self-introspection. Did I tell you about my football incident when I was in America? I told you I was watching a football game once. What happened? I never said, Josh, I never mentioned. I was in America. It's the first time we moved to Israel. We moved to Israel, and sports was always my Achilles heel. So then on our first visit back to the United States, we had to make a visit to my in-laws. So I know where my weakness is. I told my wife, you know what, I'm not going to touch the newspaper, certainly not TV, nothing. So we get back to America, and I think for a couple of days I held out. And eventually I took the sports section into the bathroom, slowly but surely. And after that I read the newspaper. Okay, but the first trip I held out. The second trip we was there on Erev Pesach. So I'm in the living room scrubbing. Now listen to how difficult this test was. You think you have tests. Listen to this test. I'm scrubbing the carpet in the living room for Pesach. My brother-in-law is watching a game in the back room. And all I hear from the announcer keeps talking, it's a basketball game. He keeps saying, Bird, Jordan, Bird, Jordan. Oh, come on, not that. I mean, couldn't it be, couldn't it be Paul Pierce or something? No, Bird, Jordan, and I'm scrubbing. I looked at my wife. I said, "Can I go scrub in that room over there?" So she says, "Okay, one time only." So I go in the room. Game ends, tied, overtime. She comes in. She goes, "Game over yet?" I said, "Overtime." Right? She comes out, watch overtime. Game over yet? There's a second overtime. She says, you have a special siyata d'shmaya for sport. She says, you have a special siyata. That was the game Jordan scored 63 points. That was I happened to see that one. See, Hashem loves the righteous. I happen to see that. Okay, so once I broke, that was the chink in the armor. Once we broke through there. So then a little later on, I don't remember what's a week later, there's a football game on. So I think Cleveland was playing. They're getting hammered. There's a football game. And so, I come over, and my brother-in-law's watching. I'm standing by the entrance of the room, just kind of looking from the doorway with the mishnayos in my hand, Then you take a few steps in, and eventually you sit down and put away aside the mishnayos. And eventually I just push everything away, bring out a whole tray of chicken, corn chips. If I'm going to Gehenna, I'm going the right way. I'm not going to Gehenna standing in a doorway. All right, so there, I may as well do it right. I remember, I can tell you what I ate. Oh boy. So I'm watching this football game, and and all of a sudden the what do you call it? The guy scores a touchdown. Those of you who are not American, there's very little in America that is as significant for American males as a gorilla with a helmet scoring a touchdown. They had nothing more significant. The fans go wild, and the camera starts zooming in. It does close-ups. He pans the crowd. They zoom in on this guy. I just remember it's a big wubberty guy with no shirt. He's got like the team logo painted on his chest. He's got orange and purple hair, just a monster of a thing. And he's holding a beer in one hand and a beer in the second hand. I think he had a third one in his mouth. And this guy's just going like that, and he's rubbery. And I was frozen. I was absolutely frozen. I'm looking at that thing, and up until that point I was enjoying myself. As I'm looking at that, I had this really icky feeling. I'm thinking to myself, how can he and I, how can it and I possibly have a common interest? How can we possibly have a common interest? I'd like to tell you, I got up, I slammed off the TV, and I stormed out in disgust. I would like to tell you that. I didn't. I stayed and I watched the rest of the game. I wasn't about to stop right then. I should have. So, got some of that in me. How much of that have we got in us? We got a lot of that in us. I remember when they had the 1991, the Gulf War. There were people watching the Gulf War. America's going into Iraq, right? They're going in through windows and through whatever it is. They're taking down buildings. And people are watching this destruction with corn chips and pop. Wait, this is, wow, did you see that smart bomb? He just took out a whole building. Here, let me have some of those chips. Wait, it's unbelievable, right? If you're enjoying that, where's that? That's not coming from Yitzchak Avinu. That's not coming from the Chafetz Chaim. If you're enjoying destruction, it's coming from Esav. It's coming from Esav. You understand? We have that stuff in us. We have all of that in us. So the first thing we have to think about is why, how much? That's the first thing. Now, there's another very big question here. Would you imagine the following?
Imagine the following. On Chanukah, we have two miracles, right? You got the miracle of the war, and you got the miracle of the oil. What do we do to commemorate it? We light the oil in what's called Pirsumei Nisa. I want to ask you a question. Imagine a guy jumps out of an airplane, and his parachute doesn't open. And he lands. Remember I told you there's a guy landing on the bramble bush. Okay? Guy jumps, falls 10,000 feet, and he lands, and he doesn't die. He lands on a bramble bush, and he walks away from it. Okay? Now, he also checks his pocket real quick, and he sees that his smartphone is in perfect shape, not a scratch on the smartphone. So he decides he's going to, the next year on the anniversary of his miracle, he decides he's going to commemorate it. So what does he wants to publicize the miracle. So what does he do? Right in his window, he puts up a nice, beautiful smartphone. That's how he commemorates the miracle. How would you commemorate that miracle? I would put a parachute in the window. Right? That's what I would put a parachute, an airplane, something. The smartphone is nice, but that's not really on the list of priorities of it. That's not the main thing that's happened. Now, is it? So here we have a war, the few against the many. We survive, and at the end of it, what do? And also, there's another miracle. We find an untainted little thing of oil. How quaint! So we want to survive it every year. I mean, every year, what I would do is I would put a bow and arrow in the window. Put a Greek in the window, a Greek with a bow and arrow through him, something. Well, we're celebrating by putting the menorah. I mean, it's a nice miracle. Miracles. I mean, I'm all for miracles, but on the list of priority, how important is it really? So let me ask you a question. You know the story of David HaMelech and Goliath, David HaMelech and Goliath. What happened? Did we mention this last week? Josh, did we mention this last week? David and Goliath, does that sound familiar? Okay. Goliath is 6 amos in a zeres. Now, if an amma is somewhere between 1.5 and 2 feet. So let's say he's 10 feet tall. He's exactly the size of a basketball rim. And if an amma is a little taller, a little more, depending on it, so he's the height of a basketball backboard. By the way, do you know, this is totally parenthetical, Minute Bull, who was the tallest player who ever played in the NBA, was 7'7" and a quarter, or something like that. You know, he once chipped a tooth on the rim. Think about that. Yeah, he chipped a tooth on the rim. Turned, jumped, went for a rebound, and he hit his tooth. That happened to me all the time when I was playing basketball. He chipped the tooth on the rim. So Goliath is about 10 feet tall. He's armed to the teeth. He's covered head to toe with armor. And the only part of him that's exposed is his forehead. He's standing out with the Plishtim, the Philistines. They are in their military formation. They're on one hill. The Jewish people with Saul, King Saul, they're on the other hill. And for 40 days, he goes down into the valley, and he's saying, come on, send out a fighter. Come on, send out your best fighter. Let's go. And he's blaspheming. He's blaspheming God. He's intimidating the Jewish people. He says, okay, listen, I'll make you a deal. Send out a fighter. If I beat him, you'll be enslaved to us, and if he beats me, we'll be enslaved to you. So David HaMelech shows up, and he sees the Jewish people are tsittering. They're all sitting there. They're all shaking in fear. Nobody's doing anything. He says, what's going on? He says, that Plishti is intimidating. So David HaMelech goes out there. The Medrash says first they put armor on him, but he couldn't move in the armor. It was too big for him. They put his brother's armor on him, somebody's armor they put on, or Shaul's armor. I think it was King Saul's armor they put on him. He couldn't move. The armor was too big for him. So David HaMelech goes out there. He says, what, that's what you're afraid of? I'll fight him. I'm coming in the name of God, and I'll fight him. So David comes out with his stone. He takes the stone and whoosh, lets it go. Boom. Hits Goliath right in the forehead. What happens to Goliath? He died. He falls over. Which way did he fall over, Josh?
Straight down. Yeah.
Straight down. Okay. If I give you 3 choices, he fell straight down, backwards, or forwards. Which was most logical to fall if a stone hits in the forehead and embeds itself in the forehead, strong enough to kill him? Either backwards or crumple at your feet. The Medrash says he fell forward 6 feet. Fell forward. He fell forward, and David HaMelech took out his sword and cut off his head. Fell forward. He pitched forward. Why? Says the Medrash. To save David HaMelech 12 paces. Otherwise, David HaMelech would have had to walk all the way over there, 12 paces. He has 6 paces and another 6 paces, right? He's 6 paces tall, and he falls back. So he's from here to here. So he's got to go back there. So he falls forward right at his feet. How quaint. David HaMelech takes a sword, he chops his head off. So the obvious question is, why was that miracle needed? Why do you need that miracle? David HaMelech he's a national hero. He's going to marry the king's daughter. Now that was the promise for anybody who kills Shaul. He's going to marry the king's daughter. He's going to be rich, powerful, famous. He's got everything. So now he's got a miracle. You know, David HaMelech would have been glad to float over 12 amos and cut his head. It'd be a beautiful day for head chopping. He would have been floated over and chopped off his head. Right? Can you imagine such a thing? If I told you, by the way, out in the hallway over there, there's a sack with $40,000 cash in it. It's 12 paces away, Gil. Hate when that happens, huh? Now you got to walk all the way out there, 12 paces. Right? Oh, wow, it landed on a day. Yeah, you'd be out there plenty fast. You'd be out there. The only one in the room faster would be me. That's we'd be out there. 12 paces, I'll walk 20 paces. I'd walk a mile for a camel. Remember that commercial? I'd walk a mile for a camel. For $40,000, I'd do more. 12 paces, David HaMelech to go chop off his head. You're the national hero. He'd be gladly do. So why did he get the miracle? What do you say, Josh?
Because Hashem didn't want to make it a hidden miracle. Then people might think that when he used, like, he threw the stone, that he actually did it. It was him. But Hashem wanted to make it seem like known that it wasn't him. It was Hashem.
Interesting. Where did you get the idea from? Very interesting. Very interesting. Could be. What the commentary says, like Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says, like this: Imagine a father. He has a wallet full of cash, and he loses his wallet. $50,000 cash in the wallet. He can't find. Well, family's in a panic. Everybody's crying in a panic. One of the kids in the house, after an hour of searching, one of the kids, the 7-year-old, crawls under an impossibly narrow area of the thing, sticks his hand under, and he finds the wallet. So everybody's up singing and dancing. The whole family. It's a big simcha. But then the father grabs the 7-year-old who found it and he gives him a kiss. Why does he give him a kiss and nobody else? The answer is we're all happy, and it was a deliverance for the whole family. The whole family was saved. But you're the one who did it. You're special. So David HaMelech kills okay, it's a deliverance for the entire Jew. It's a celebration for the Jewish people. How do we see that David HaMelech is just, like George Orwell might have said, everybody is special, but some are more special than others, right? How does David HaMelech, where does the HaKadosh Baruch Hu show that David HaMelech is just that much, he gets his own little private miracle. Your own little, they have in Israel, you'd ever go into the store, they have you can get a cinnamon or a big rugula. They call it, it's wrapped in plastic, costs you more than it should, but it's wrapped in plastic. It's called a mana ishi, a personal portion. That rugula is called a mana ishi. It's a personal portion, and it's wrapped in plastic, so it tastes better, obviously. Mana ishi, right? So David HaMelech has what's called a nes ishi, personal little miracle, just for you. You know why? Just to show you that you have a certain level of belovedness in the eyes of Hashem. That's why he gets his personal little miracle. What happened on Chanukah? Jewish people are saved. We had to be saved. You know why? Because God promised the Jewish people that the Jewish people are never going to go lost. We had to be saved. Did God save us because he had to? Or God saved us because he wanted, quote unquote, he wanted to? Why did God save us? He had to, or he wanted to, because of the belovedness of the Jewish people. The miracle of the oil shows you that he wanted to. It's your own little personal miracle. Unnecessary. Had they not had that oil, they would have lit tamei oil. It would have been fine. That just shows you that right now you're beloved. It's your own little cherry on top, so to speak. And therefore, on Chanukah, we light the menorah to commemorate the miracle. It's not just the miracle, it's the miracle of the belovedness. The Jewish people are beloved to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we're lighting that menorah to show the belovedness of the Jewish people. That's the idea. That's the Chanukah menorah. The miracle of the oil we're commemorating. Yes, there was a war. I mean, if we would commemorate every military victory, every time we've been saved, we'd have 100 prongs in the menorah. The miracle of the war, the miracle of Chanukah is that little thing that shows that the belovedness, the Jewish people are beloved by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the nace of the oil. That's the miracle of the oil. So I told you my favorite incident here, one of my favorite in Israel. I saw in the morning paper, a guy got arrested here in Israel. What happened? He was a Sutler living out in the settlements, and he was driving his car. A bunch of Arabs up on a hill were pelting his car with stones. So the guy got out of his car and he shot up in the air. He shot up in the air, and he ended up killing one of the Arabs. He hit him in the forehead. It's a bullet. So guy got arrested. I'm reading this in the morning. Guy got arrested. You can't go, first of all, you're not allowed to fire warning shots. You certainly can't go shooting them. That's a heck of a warning shot. That's some warning shot from 3 paces away. Yeah. So guy gets arrested. About a week later, I'm saying breakfast again. The same time I'm eating breakfast, I'm reading that paper. They deliver the Yatei Daman free. There's a free copy once a week. That's the one I get. I'm Jewish. And the about me and Warren Buffett. So they deliver the, what do you call it? So I'm reading the morning paper, and I see that in the corner of the column, the Sutler was released by the police. This is a week later. It's very strange. A guy killed an Arab. They don't release it. They put him in jail. They don't kill him. So I'm reading the column, and I started reading. I actually started laughing. I was holding my coffee, and I actually started coughing on my coffee as I started laughing. What happened was, it wasn't his bullet that killed the Arab. The Arab, as the car was speeding, threw a stone at the car. It hit the tire and shot right back at the Arab who threw it and hit him in the forehead and killed him. Right? That's what Kivadovar Asher Zodu Aleim. That's what killed him. Right? The best shot, I remember thinking to myself, best shot since David nailed Goliath, right? Best hit on a Palestinian in the forehead since David killed the pillars, killed Goliath. Now, listen, is there a God or there isn't a God? It's a shot, you couldn't do it if you wanted to. You couldn't hit that shot if you wanted. He threw it at the thing, shot right back and he killed him. That's the celebration. That's the celebration. Now, the third point is a point that most people are not aware of. You have to think, this is not, I wouldn't call it what do you call it, a misconception. It's just something people don't pay attention to. How do you know about the Chanukah miracle? How do you know about the Chanukah miracle? How do you know about what happened to that menorah? How do you know? Why are you smiling, Gil? I'm asking you, how do you know? There's no Chanukah menorah. How do you? The Maccabees wrote it, right? It's in it there. How did the Maccabees know? What's that?
It's like a Megillah.
There's a Megillah, it's in Halacha. That's how we know. How did they know? How did the Jewish people know in that generation? They were there? Good, I'm glad you said it. You stepped right into it. They weren't there. You know why? Because the menorah was in the Kodesh, where nobody's allowed in except Kohanim. How many people saw this miracle? A handful of people. Handful of people came out and said, Gil, you're not going to believe it. I lit the thing and it burned for 8 days. You're not going to believe it. There's only enough oil. Okay, if you say so, Kaplan. I'm a Kohen. And now you're all going home and lighting menorahs, celebrating a miracle that you feel in your kishkes, even though it's all by semi-word of mouth. You know, there's an expression, you can't compare hearing to seeing. Eino doma shmiya l're'iyah. I'll believe it when I see it. People say that. I'll believe it when I see it. Right? And this one, nobody saw except the Kohanim. Isn't that interesting? No coincidence. There's no coincidence. There's no coincidence. You know why that is? What were the Greeks against? What have all reformers all through history always been against?
Someone being special.
That's for sure. That's for sure. The liberal Jews say Jews are no better than anybody else.
Practicing Judaism?
Practicing Judaism was based on what? Specifically, Torah Sheba'al Peh. Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral Torah. Written Torah? Everybody agrees that really. Even the Christians believe there's a testament because there's a New Testament. I always wondered, why did the Christians, they couldn't come up with their own story? They had an Old Testament and a New Testament. And make up your own religion. What do you got around? Instead of a flood, there was an earthquake. Instead of 10 plagues, there were 100 stampedes. Make up something. Make up a story. Well, you got imagination.
Because at that time, you couldn't deny the fact.
Right. The answer is everybody knew that there was an Old Testament. Everybody knows there's a written Torah. Nobody in their right mind would deny the written Torah. Even the Christians, the Muslims, everybody agrees there's a written Torah. The oral Torah, that's a problem. Now, you know what the written Torah doesn't do anything to us. Written Torah it's not binding on me. The written Torah doesn't stop me from doing anything. All the written Torah says is honor your parents. That's all it says. I do. I call them once a month and ask for money. I think that's pretty honorable, right? I think it's pretty honorable. That's how I honor my parents. Torah says don't wear shatnez. Okay, I don't. Anytime I'm really, really hot, I don't put on a coat. That's why I call shatnez. Prove that's not shatnez. Tell me, prove that's not shatnez. Wool and linen. Okay, I won't wear wool or linen alone. Who says you can't wear them together? It doesn't give you definitions. It doesn't give you any definitions. So you must slaughter an animal before you eat it. It doesn't say how to shecht it. It doesn't tell you keep Shabbos. Don't desecrate Shabbos. Okay, I won't desecrate Shabbos. I won't desecrate Shabbos. Fine. I'm not desecrating Shabbos. I'm driving my car. I'm not desecrating Shabbos. I don't think it's a desecration at all. Anything that you come up with, okay, there might be exceptions, 1 or 2 exceptions. For the most part, the Torah is not binding unless there's an oral Torah. If we could do away with the oral Torah, then we do away with anything binding in Judaism. That's always been the battle of the reformers in all generations. Let's get rid of the oral Torah. They're even been willing to take on the literal meaning of the written Torah and to bind themselves in certain areas because, see, we take the written Torah literally, which means we deny the oral Torah, which means that we're free to do whatever we want. That was the fight. That's always the battle. What's the way you rectify that? You strengthen the oral tradition. Where does the strengthening oral tradition begin? The Kohen comes out and says to you, hey guys, I saw a miracle in there. And now you have to accept him at his word. Because the entire oral Torah has been transferred word of mouth. It's word of mouth coming from a previous generation. You know the story, the guy comes into Hillel. Says to Hillel, okay, I believe you, I want to convert. But I believe you that there's a written Torah but no oral Torah. Gemara on Shabbos, one of the converts, he comes to Hillel. So he says, I believe you about a written Torah, I don't believe there's an oral Torah. So Hillel says, okay, we'll convert you. But now it's time for our Torah lessons. So he says, here's an Aleph, here's a Beis, here's a Gimel, here's a Dalet. The guy memorizes Aleph, Aleph, Beis, Beis, Gimel, Dalet. Okay. The next day Hillel comes over and he says to him, well, that's a Dalet, a Gimel, a Beis, and an Aleph. Tells him exactly the opposite. He says, hey, yesterday you told me it's an Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet. He said, right. And you believe what I told you yesterday? So you could always also believe that there's an oral tradition. What does that mean? What did Hillel really tell him? What did Hillel really tell him? What is he really telling him? Ultimately, everything in life has an oral tradition. There has to be an oral. There's an oral tradition. Sure, it's a written Torah. And how do you know how to pronounce the letters? Who told you an Aleph's an Aleph? Who told you a Tuf is a Tuf? How do you know? There has to be an oral tradition for everything in life. In every Jewish home that you go into, every piece of electronic equipment has an oral tradition. How do you work a washing machine in a Jewish home? Well, you push down the second button and the third button and wedge a comb in between the two of them, right? Without a comb, it's not going to work, right? It doesn't work. Every piece of equipment in a Jewish home, there's a kunst to it. You know, push a button, or push down two buttons at once, then push it and wedge something in. How do you get the microwave to go? Well, you got to kind of flick it. You got to kind of flick it with your elbow and hear the click. There's got to be a click. Was there a click? No click. Okay. Yeah. Well, how do you know? There's an oral Torah. There's got to be an oral Torah. Even starting your car has an oral Torah. Everything's got an oral Torah to it. So how can it be that Torah doesn't have an oral Torah? That's what Hillel was telling you. You play Monopoly? Don't you have an oral tradition in your Monopoly? What do you do on free parking? What does the written Torah say about free parking? You know what the written Torah says? What happens in free parking, Sam?
You just land there.
You land there. That's it. You don't even lose a turn. It's just a space. But no Jew plays that way. Well, waste space? Wasted space. Not one Jew that I know plays it. It's either you put in the tax money or you put in some other money. I'm not going to waste the perfect good space on the board. That's the oral tradition. Everybody's got, and everything in life has an oral tradition. Torah has to have an oral tradition. That's what Chanukah is. There's an attack against the Menorah. There's an attack against Jewish tradition. We have to show that we go the opposite. We accept oral Torah. We accept the ruling of the Kohanim. A miracle took place. We show our loyalty. Okay? One more point. You take a look at a menorah. A menorah is made of three components. What are the three components? Flame, oil, and a wick. Three components of the menorah. Okay? Now, what does a flame always represent? Every time in Torah you see a flame, what does flame represent? Flame, okay, the flame always represents the presence of Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu sees the burning bush, a flame. The Jewish people get the Torah at Har Sinai, flame. The Mishkan, on top of the Mishkan, the presence of God, there's a flame. God's always appearing in a fire.
How was there a flame in Sinai? On Mount Sinai?
It says of Har Bo'er Ba'esh. The mountain was, it's a pasuk in the Torah. In the big blue book, it says the Har Bo'er Ba'esh. There was a flame on the mountain, or the mountain was not a flame, the flame on the mountain, but it says openly, Har Bo'er Ba'esh. Okay, the fire always represents the presence of Hashem's presence. What does oil represent? The Jewish people. You ever hear that? The Jewish people are compared to olives and oil. You ever heard that? Sure, because an olive, the best part of the olive is the oil. Oil is the Jewish people because the oil floats to the top. Oil always floats to the top. You take a look at Time magazine. Time magazine is like who's who in the Jewish world. Finance, all about Jews. Entertainment industry, all about Jews. What do you call it? Politics, all about Jews. Sports, all about Jews. The Jews are everything in sports. They're the owners and the agents. The only thing they don't do is play because they don't want to get dirty. They're the owners and the agents. Crime, usually Jews, right? At least if it's a good one, that's a Jew. Madoff is Jewish, right? At least if we're going to do it, we do it right. What do you call it? Science. Science. What do they got? What percentage of the Nobel Prizes have been won by Jews? What is it, about 25% or something like that? Completely out of project. In all society, Jews, oil floats to the top. Jews are always going to be heard from. No matter where you go, Jews are going to. I saw an interview they once showed here in North Samantha. They had a video. They had like a video they took. They were interviewing people on the streets of Toronto, non-Jews on the streets of Toronto. They're asking them. They were interviewing. How many Jews do you think there are in the world? So one guy says, I don't know, about 15 million. Another guy says, 10 million. Guy says, one guy says, about 500 million. 500 million Jews. Half of India. 500 million Jews. 500 million Jews. That's interesting. Where would a guy get an idea like that? 500 million Jews? That's 1 2/3 the size of the United States. 500 million Jews. That's what the guy said. Well, think about it. His doctor is for sure Jewish, right? His doctor's got to be Jewish. His dentist is probably Jewish. The guy who owns the department store where he shops is Jewish. His employer is probably Jewish. The guy suing him is probably Jewish. His lawyer is Jewish. Everywhere he goes is Jewish. Everybody around me is Jewish. The whole world is Jewish. That's what the guy thinks. Jews are always heard from far out of proportion to their number. That's the oil. The reason it comes from the olives, by the way, how do you get the oil out of the olive? You got to crush the olive. You got to do something unpleasant to the olive to produce the best part of it. When do Jews do better? When things are going smoothly. Where does Jewish loyalty go? When things are doing smoothly, and when Jews are a little under the gun. Unfortunately, there's a pasuk that says Vayishman Yeshurun Vayiva. Yeshurun, which is the Jewish people, Yeshurun waxed fat and rebelled. When the Jewish people are doing well, unfortunately, if we were doing well and then we would apply ourselves so we could do well. Problem is that when we're doing well, then we start enjoying the material pursuits. The Jewish people, whenever they've been under the gun, when things have been rough, that's when all of a sudden Jewish, what they call the Pintel Yid, the spark of the Jew comes out. You know the famous story. I think it was the Kloisenberger Rebbe. Kloisenberger Rebbe, after the war, he was in the DP camps. The displaced people's camps in the Holocaust. So Kloisenberger Rebbe, who himself lost 11 children, he was on the death march. He was in Auschwitz for 4 years. He'd been through the whole thing. Kloisenberger was through the whole thing. So he's in the displaced person camps, and he's trying to get a minyan together for Mincha. He goes around and he says, could you join us for Mincha? Could you join us for Mincha? So everybody's coming to get a few people together for Mincha. There's one elderly man. He says, Rabbi, I ain't davening Mincha with these people. So I ask you, why not? He says, yeah, and I'll tell you exactly why not. In my barracks, there was one man in my barracks who had a sitter. One Jew had a sitter. And if anybody wanted to use the sitter, they had to give up an entire day's portions of food, which wasn't much anyway. They'd give up their day's rations in order for him to use. He would charge a day's rations to use his sitter. That's how a Jew behaves. I'm not davening. So Kloisenberger said to him, I don't understand. You're right, that man did something very not nice. But why are you looking at the man who charged the rations for the sitter? Why don't you look at the people who gave up their rations for the sitter?
Wow.
So why don't you look at the people who gave up their rations? Look at all the people who gave up their rations. The man got up and went down Mincha with them. Right? So sometimes under the gun, that's when you see Jews start becoming more loyal. Unfortunately, that's why the oil is comparable to the olive. The olives, the oil comes from the olive. You crush the olives, you do something unpleasant to the olives, out comes the oil. What's a wick? What's the Hebrew word for a wick? A ptila. Ptila. Pei taf yud lamed he is a ptila. Ptila is a wick. Rearrange the letters of the word ptila. What do you get? Tefillah. You get tefillah, prayer. How does the oil get to the flame? How do Jewish people get close to the Shekhinah? They climb on prayer. That's how we get close. All right, Alichtige Chanukah.